Each year, the senior class of the American School of Warsaw chooses a faculty member to speak at graduation. It is difficult to describe this year's speaker, Scott Barber, in a brief few words, which is the case, as you know, for a lot of free-spirited individuals. Scott is a skier, a surfer, climber, traveler, culinary artist, actor, musician, and National Hockey League fanatic. Oh, and in his spare time, he teaches IB language and literature and theory of knowledge. During his years at ASW, Scott has forged his reputation among his students and colleagues as one of the most intellectual, philosophical, down-to-earth, and occasionally sarcastic teachers on this campus. Next year, Scott will rejoin his wife, Katie, son, Brody, and new dog, Badger, in the Pacific Northwest, bringing his talents to the fortunate students of Methil Valley's Liberty Bell Junior and Senior High School as, get this, their newest history teacher. Please help me welcome this year's faculty speaker, Mr. Scott Barber.
I was going to let you in on a secret. It's spelled M-E-T-H-O-W, but the pronunciation, if you're a local, is Methil. Methil, yeah. So they'll know if you're a tourist if you pronounce it Methil. And we don't like tourists up there. All right. Dzień dobry. I was on the way here, I was riding with Mr. Nyman, and he was reminding me that this was actually a privilege to get up here and speak. And for a while, it was feeling a lot like payback for oral commentaries and further oral activities and all the other stress I've put you through. So it can be hard to know what to speak about at one of these things. And thankfully, Reese came in just the other day. And he walks through the door, and he's like, "Bro, I heard you're going to be the grad speaker. That's sick." And I'm like, "Yeah, if I knew what to speak about, dude." And I'm like, "You have any ideas, Reese?" And he's like, "Oh, poetry. Talk about poetry, man." So I was like, "That's a great idea. That's what I'm going to do." So, and the other part of this is that they have to pay attention. Like 50% of the time, 50% of everyone seems to be in their computer or secretly looking at their phone or Facebook or something. So everyone has to listen to me about one last poem today. So that's my payback. In 1915, Robert Frost wrote this poem about roads into the future, and it's been traditionally read at a lot of commencement ceremonies. And he would laugh or chuckle, even during his lifetime, that people would interpret his poem in a way that he didn't intend. Oftentimes this is read as an inspirational poem about being yourself and being independent and seeking separation from the norm. And if you've studied literature, I think everyone can vouch for it from our program that you can't really have a serious work of literature that's motivational and inspirational. It has to be kind of dark and depressing or have some kind of irony or cruel joke at the bottom of it. So I'll do my best to ruin inspirational reading for you and stay consistent with what we do in the literature classroom. So this poem is called "The Road Not Taken" by Robert Frost. And Frost said this one's tricky, and I'll start off by reading the first stanza and talking a little bit about it. He wrote, "Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth." And one of the things that I think he points out about our experience in the first is that foresight's incredibly short. The road obviously is a metaphor for the future, and all you can do is look down it to where it bends into the undergrowth. And undergrowth, of course, is really thick brush, so you can't see where you're going. In 1988, I graduated from high school, and right before I graduated, I had a pretty good idea. I thought of maybe what I wanted to do. I was pretty decent at design and art. I loved video and music. I also went to a private school, grew up with parents that were affluent. And I figured that business, some sort of business activity would be a natural progression that combined my talents. I'd also gone on a trip to Orange County to stay with some bajillionaire friends of my parents. And I decided also that I would somehow end up living in Southern California. And I'd come to resent my parents for making me grow up in the mountains of Washington State because it was so uncool. I desperately wanted to be a surfer boy from the beach. And I have an artifact from that time period because our teacher, Mr. Olstein, my high school English teacher, made us write letters to ourselves when we were seniors, and then he posted these 10 years later. And you can see what my foresight was like. Dear Scooter, that was my nickname, I don't know if you knew that. I hope this finds future me living the dream. I imagine you will have made your first million by now in advertising, and you're reading this somewhere along the Pacific Coast Highway in Orange County where you've pulled over to check the surf in your 6 Series BMW when you suddenly thought, dude, what was that weird envelope in the mail today? I'll end there because the rest of this thing is so imbecilic and juvenile that it would embarrass me terribly if you knew what I was like when I was in high school. So I got this in the mail in 1998, and there was no way I could have seen the profound changes in my life that would occur before then. I had just been accepted to graduate school. I had no money. I was about to go $20,000 into debt. So I was going to become a teacher, which meant never having a 6 Series BMW. If I added up all my paycheck for the first 20 years, I wouldn't make $1 million. Oh, and I'd come to loathe the OC also. So what was it that happened to me? When my dad, a few years after I graduated, when I was in university, my dad got prostate cancer. And one day we were hanging out, and he says to me, very little fatherly advice, like philosophical stuff ever between us. It was more like, hey, let's play football or go on a motorcycle ride. But he said to me one day, and this is his nickname for me, Buster, he says, don't do what I did. He said, I graduated from school, I got married right away, I became an engineer, stuck with my career. I've spent the last 30 years working, selling food processing machinery. Now I'm the president of a company, I've done well, but it's just not the way to live your life. So I didn't need a lot of encouragement. And I said, okay, sounds like a good plan, Dad. What should I do? And he said, I don't know, you got to figure that out for yourself. So I spent the next 6 years skiing, traveling around the world by myself, searching out exotic, empty waves in the tropics, climbing high into the Himalaya. I took the time to read, wander aimlessly in the wilderness without a soundtrack, to think, to learn to play guitar. I spent some time homeless, sleeping under the stars, penniless, doing whatever work needed to be done, anywhere I could to pay for food. And every once in a while, I'd get a ticket home. And when I got there, every once in a while, my brother, who was doing something similar, would show up as well. And we hadn't cut our hair for 7 years. And my mom would cry at the dinner table when she looked at us. And she'd say, why couldn't I have just had one doctor or lawyer? And we'd say, but Mom, we've crawled through jungles in Indonesia and paddled out across coral reefs into the most amazing surf. And we've climbed mountains with skis on our back, and skied off and down. And I realized that what she was saying to me was that she wanted us to find out what we were capable of. And she didn't recognize that we had a different concept of finding out what we were capable of. We wanted to find out physically what we were capable of. We wanted to find out if we had courage and whether we would survive really difficult circumstances. In some ways, I feel like in walking away from my mother's dreams, I was choosing consciously an untrodden path. But in other ways, it's hard to say that. And that brings me to the second and third stanzas of the poem. Frost writes, after he looks down the path into the undergrowth, he says, then I took the other, just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. And I think what's interesting when we look at this part of the poem is that when you look at the details of the poem, Frost says that there's no way to tell when you look at the past which one is the road less traveled, which some people refer to this poem by. And there's no way to tell which path has had less wear on it. And so the question would be, why does Frost confuse us with paths that both show no sign of travel? And both are just as good to take. And I think that what he's saying is that all paths into the future are new and intensely personal. And in a sense, none of them have been trodden. What I found when I became a ski bum, when I became a beach bum, is that it had all been done before, just not by me. And it wasn't ever, I never feel like in my life that I'm breaking new ground, only that I'm doing experiences that are new for me. And that's the case with any experience, no matter what you choose. So when I was 28 and I got that letter to myself, I was also at another crossroad in my life. On one hand, I feel like might be considered the road less traveled, was my desire to, this almost made my mom want to kill herself, I think. I was going to become a marine diesel mechanic and buy a sailboat, and then I wanted to circumnavigate solo around the world and just surf atolls out in the Pacific. So that was one. But then I'd also met a woman and fallen in love, and so the road more traditional was there: get married, find a real job, become a parent. So I can explain one part of the road I ended up on pretty easily, and that's love. There's no accounting for it, and once it gets its tender hooks in you, sometimes you don't want them removed. And in many ways, there's nothing as fulfilling, I can say, in committing yourself into a deep, loving connection with another person. And I think, in a personal level, I needed to know, was I capable of committing myself to a woman? And then later, was I capable of committing myself to an orphan boy? And those are interesting things to find out about yourself. And of course, I became a teacher, and there might not be any more road traveled than becoming a teacher. It's a profession that's changed little in 200 years, and you're all deadly familiar, right, with what we do because you've been in the classroom with us all the time. And as a matter of fact, the boy who wrote the letter in 1988 viewed teachers as oppressive forces of conformity. Here I am, a model citizen, right, standing before you today. And there's a great irony here because I was asked not to attend my own graduation from high school. I'd published a underground newspaper called The Illegitimate Son that was a satirical attack on the values of Bellevue Christian School. It was met with less than celebration by my principal. And he asked me not to come to graduation because he thought I would do something to ruin the ceremony. And I promised, my grandmother was coming and my parents had paid to fly them out, so I swore I would be a good boy. So, a question I have is, did the universe then conspire against the rebellious 18-year-old in me to make me a teacher? And I would say no. Through my journeys, my values perhaps changed a bit. I wanted, in the end, to find work with meaning and a way to contribute to community and connect with coming generations. And I felt deeply an urge to live a life that matters. Do I ever second-guess my decision to be a teacher and wonder what life would have been like sailing away into the Pacific? Just perfect waves, sunsets every day. Well, Frost, he addresses this in this poem as well. He resolves the poem with a little bit of a shift here at the end. He says, "Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." Well, what is Frost pointing out about the human condition here in the end? I think I can pull a few things out of this poem. Number one, I think he's saying that just about 50% of everything is chance. You can't know what will happen in the future. Everyone does the best they can at the time, and they adapt to circumstances, and we all evolve. Life, in a sense, I think, is evolution. You can choose what you think is the road less traveled, but it may just lead you to being a married teacher with children. Another thing I think that he points out for us is the way, and you're familiar with this, I'm sure, the way older generations look back and sugarcoat the past with nostalgic mythology. He looks back with a sigh and says, "I took the road less traveled by." But of course, when he was making his choices, there's no way he could tell what the road less traveled was. And so he looks back and he creates a kind of positive mythology for himself to say, yes, of course, I'm independent and I chose the good way, which is probably easy to do if you're successful in life. I think we all tend to look back and embellish the roles that we had for ourselves, and we bend the truth to remember our ideal selves in an ideal time. You always hear people talking about how much better it was when they were young, and these kids today are like zombies walking around glued to their cell phones and blah, blah, blah. But I really think that every generation has its challenges it deals with and comes up with different ways to solve them and makes decisions to be the best they can in the time period that they find themselves in. And it's one thing I know as a teacher, seeing generation after generation graduate, is that you'll do all right. Every group of seniors figures out a way to get through the program and to graduate and be successful. And so I'm confident that you also will. The last thing has to do with the title. He didn't call the poem The Road Less Traveled. He called it The Road Not Taken. And he points out something very true about our experience. Regardless of what road we've taken, we'll always wonder what was down the path we didn't take. In some sense, then, successful businessmen will always envy the freedom of the solo adventurer. And every solo adventurer I know, when they get to my age, they all feel a pang of regret at not having kids, at being kind of selfish with their lives. And all junctions in the road require a choice and then movement down the line, and then you look back and think, oh, what might have been? And now we're all set to move on down a line. I, like you, stand at a jumping off point, a commencement, if you will. We've made our choices now, and we're prepared to travel new roads. And I finally found a way, happily, to get back to the mountains of Washington State after a long time on a long road. And you're about to also enter into a new road that you've chosen. And the thing is, we can't really know exactly where this road will take us. And once we get there, we may just wish we were somewhere else. It's possible. That's life. It's about choices, and often one choice means the exclusion of others. And it's in our nature to wonder what might have been, to long for alternatives. But the fact remains that you'll end up somewhere at the end of whatever road you choose, and you'll look back also with a sigh. And the question that I have for you is, what kind of sigh is it that you're going to make? What I wish for you is that when you too are seasoned, like me, ages and ages hence, that you'll be able to look back with a contented sigh and be profoundly happy with the roads that you've taken. And my suspicion is that those of you who focus on challenging yourselves, on finding meaningful work, and on nurturing healthy relationships with your families, with your lovers, with the communities around you, that you'll be able to do just that. I want to say congratulations to the class of 2016 and to those of you who made the last 2 years of my road at ASW awesome by being in my class. I offer my profound gratitude, and I thank you. And also to the ASW community at large, farewell. It's been real. Dziękuję bardzo.
We'll now present the graduation diplomas to our graduates. I invite Mr. Coburn, Mr. Tchaikovsky, Chairperson of the American School of Warsaw Board of Trustees, and IBDP Coordinator Ms. Małgosia Hidzik to the front to help with the presentation of the graduates and the conferring of the diplomas.
Jacob Barlow. Jürgen Borchgrevink. Francisco Brito. Monika Brusikiewicz. Natalia Buckley. Madeline Camp. Piotr Celiński. King Feng Chai. Hao Chen. Stanisław Cieński. Anna Maria Drost. Anna Maria is a recipient of the Director's Award for Artistic Excellence. We thank you for your creativity, expression, and devotion to your work, Anna Maria. Rachel Eichhorst. Joanna Felix. Daniel Gościniak. Julia Grzeszczak. Natalia Henriksen. Aleksandra Jankowska. Miguel Jorge. Soo-Yeon Jung. Karolina Kaczmarek. Mega Kevlani. Tomasz Kostrzewski. Marta Kozłowska. Michał Kozłowski. Ruth Lammers. Eun-Jung Lim. Vedika Lustra. Piotr Łyskawiński. Jakub Maciejewski. Artur Matejka. Giacomo Marighi. Krzysztof Mirek. Yeon Sun Nam. Carlota Ovillero. Keon-woo Park. Jan Pastor. Nela Piątek. Stanisław Podstawa. Livia Popow. Orion Purte. Vincent Piton. Tomasz Radwański. Krish Sabnani. Priyanka Sahu. Mariana Silva. Sebastian Sirotin. Elisa Strobe. Reese Venter. Stanisław Wołdołowski. Tiani Young.
Mr. Coburn, Mr. Tchaikovsky, members of the Board of Trustees, I hereby certify that the students receiving the diplomas today have each met the graduation requirements established by the American School of Warsaw. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the class of 2016.